There are plenty of themes to be found in Tolkien's works, but none are as reoccurring as the use of the number 7. I thought it would be fun to dive into every example in which this number appears in Middle-earth, and there are many, many examples, more than you think. As you probably know, the numbers 3, 7, and 9 have a deep significance in literature, often symbolizing completeness or perfection. In Christian texts, 7 is associated with divine creation. For example, God created the world in 6 days and rested in the seventh, making it holy. In the world itself, there are 7 wonders, 7 heavens, 7 seas, and 7 ways of life. Thus, the number doesn't only transcend numerical value, but brings to mind concepts such as completeness, mystery, and universal truths. The most famous example of the number 7 in Middle-earth are the 7 rings for the Dwarf Lords, but there are many more, both in the main story and in the wider legendarium. When Bilbo escaped from Gollum with the One Ring, he jumped 7 feet forward and 3 in the air. Of the dwarfs of Thorin's company, only 7 survived the Battle of 5 Armies. In the Shire, the mayor of Michel Delving was elected every 7 years. Glorfindel crossed the last bridge of the Miphyfal 7 days before his encounter with Aragorn and the Hobbits. Bilbo mentioned 7 lights in his song about Earendil. When Gandalf found out from Barliman Butterburg that Frodo had taken Aragorn as his guide, he wished Barliman's bier to be laid under an enchantment of excellence for 7 years. The Fellowship departed Rivendell 7 days after it was founded. At the borders of Lothlorien, Haldir originally decreed that only 7 could enter, the 8th being Gimli. Frodo saw in Galadriel's mirror a white fortress with 7 towers. The Fellowship spotted a great eagle flowing over the Anduin 7 days after they began their journey on the river. Shadowfax returned to Rohan 7 nights before Gandalf and the 3 hunters arrived. In front of Edoras's gates there were 7 mounts of the kings of the second royal line. Treebeard's feet had each 7 toes. During the parley with Gandalf, Saruman asked if the White Wizard wished not for the crowns of the 7 kings. Faramir took Frodo and Sam to Henef Anun, and Aragorn and the Grey Company reached Dunharrow on March 7th. On the way to Gondor, Gandalf sang about the 7 stones and 7 stars brought from Númenor. Minas Tirith had 7 levels, protected by 7 walls, each with its own gate. Prince Imrahil led 700 men-at-arms and swan knights to the defense of the city. 7 of Theoden's royal guards were killed at the Pelennor Fields. The standards of both Gondor and Arnor had 7 stars. When the hosts of the west began the march towards the Black Gate, they were 7,000 men-at-arms strong. On the journey home, the hobbits, alongside Gandalf, Elrond, Galadriel, and Celeborn, stayed for 7 days in Eregion, and 70 ruffians were killed at the Battle of Bywater. The number 7 comes up a few times throughout the history of the elves. Feanor and his wife Nerdanel had 7 sons. The land of Osirian became renowned for the 7 rivers which flowed through the country. During his duel with Morgoth, Fingolfin was able to inflict 7 wounds on the Dark Lord. The hidden city of Gondolin had 7 gates protecting it and 7 different names. After the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, Turgon and Círdan sent 7 ships to find Valinor and ask for aid, and 7 lords participated in the War of the Last Alliance: Gil-galad, Círdan, Elrond, Thranduil, Orofer, Amdir, and Amroth. The number also appears in regards to the Dúnedain and their ancestors. During the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, Húrin in his last stand slew 70 foes. When coming to Vinyamar after a journey of 7 days, Tuor was greeted by 7 great swans. Later, in Númenor, the famous mariner Aldarion was born in the 700th year of the Second Age. His daughter Ancalime became the first queen and 7th ruler of the island. The Númenorians themselves aided the elves in their war against Sauron in the 7th year of the conflict. Ar-Pharazôn and his army marched north for 7 days before confronting Sauron. The faithful escaped the downfall of Numenor via 7 ships and took with them 7 Palantiri, which they later divided in their kingdoms. Ostoher, the 7th king of Gondor, rebuilt Minas Anor, and it just so happened that his reign saw the first attack upon the realm by the Men of Darkness. Meanwhile, Earnur, the last king of Gondor, reigned for only 7 years. It was during the rule of Argeleb I, the 7th king of Arthedain, that the century-long war with Angmar began, and by the War of the Ring, Gondor had only 7 cities: Minas Tirith, Osgiliath, Pelargir, Linhir, Dol Amroth, Kalembel, and Efring. And yes, that's surely a coincidence. Regarding the Rohirrim, Eorl the Young mustered 7,000 riders when coming to Gondor's aid. Rohan itself was divided into 7 different regions, and like I said, there were 7 kings of the second royal line who preceded Theoden. But no race in Middle-earth was as tied to the number 7 as the dwarves. There were 7 clans of dwarves, each originally ruled by one of the 7 fathers created by Aule. The fathers would be reincarnated 6 times, so by the end there would have been 7 of them to each house. These clans received rings of power and would use them to gather great wealth in the form of the 7 hordes. When coming to the lake Mirrormere, Durin the First looked into it and saw a crown of 7 stars upon his head. Those stars would later come to be known as Durin's crown and would be carved on the doors of Durin. When Thrain II learned of his father's death, he sat for 7 days mourning, before leading 7 different armies into the war of the dwarfs and orcs. Out of the kings of Durin's folk, 7 were killed in battle or died prematurely. Durin VI and his son Nain I were both killed by a Balrog. Nain I was slain by a cold drake dragon. Thror was slain by the orc chieftain Azog. Thrain II perished in the dungeons of Sauron. Thorin II Oakenshield died during the Battle of 5 Armies, and Dain II Ironfoot fell in the Battle of Dale. And in the end, it would be Durin VII that would reclaim Khazad-dûm. There are other examples of the number 7. The 7 lords and 7 ladies of the Valar, Varda's constellation, which consists of 7 great stars, the siege of Barad-dûr, which lasted for 7 years, and Earendil, who was just 7 years old when the fall of Gondolin occurred.